Our theme this whole month is You Are Rooted in the Divine. And we began to talk about that at our Wednesday Night Wisdom. That's the free 1 hour class at 7 p.m. that we're offering. It's open to anyone. We began to attempt to answer the question, Who are you? And we talked about how much our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, was inspired by the teachings of the master teacher, Jesus of Nazareth, who is featured on our stage today, especially by Jesus' teachings about that close, personal, intimate relationship that he had with divinity. I was remembering a speaker I once heard who was an expert on the Aramaic language that Jesus would have spoken. I believe he was Rocco Errico, the speaker. And he talked about the opening lines of Our Father, the prayer. Our Father, in Aramaic, the word is Abba, which the speaker said should more correctly be rendered as something less formal, something like daddy, that close and that intimate and that personal. And that's how Jesus would talk about his relationship to the divine. He would say things like the Father, or daddy, this presence, and I are one and the same. My father was a twin, and so was my grandfather. I guess if I had children, they'd be twins too. Anyway, my father and his brother were identical. Identical enough that people mistook one for the other all of the time. People would say such things as, they're practically the same person. They would say they're one and the same person. That's what they would say about them. They couldn't tell them apart, which could lead to trouble. That was an issue. You know, when my mother and father started dating, there was some concern in my mother's Italian Catholic family that this radical element from a Dutch Protestant church was going to get into the family, you know, especially with my grandfather, my mother's father. So my dad was on best behavior because he was wooing the grandfather as well as the daughter, right? Her father. Anyway, so my mom's father got on the city bus one day, and there sitting on the bus was my father's twin. And so, building bridges, my grandfather said to the twin, hello, sternly, to which the twin responded, do I know you? Oh, what trouble that caused, you know, because he was offended, he was insulted, and everything he suspected to be true about Protestants were proven right there. If it hadn't been for my grandmother, I may never have made it into this world. Because she had to smooth it all over. She literally had to bring the two twins into the same room and say, look, they're practically the same person. And they were. And yet they were unique and distinct and different and individual. This is the closeness that the master teacher Jesus of Nazareth wanted for us. I know that because he prayed that way. This is what he said. I pray that they, you and I, will all be one, just as you and I, and he's addressing divinity, are one. As you are in me, Father, and I am in you. And that is what rooted in the divine means. Inseparable in nature. One and the same thing. I was speaking to one of our Board of Trustee members, Ann Snyder. We were having dinner, and she told me about a meme she saw that really helped her understand this. And I think it's excellent. She said that, when you have a coffee table, say, and it's made out of oak wood, you don't say, oak is in the table. No. You say it's an oak table. That's it. The table and the tree are one and the same in nature, and yet every single oak table is unique and individual and different. So that is what we're learning. We're learning to say to ourselves, I am made of divine stuff. And it's not enough for me to say, God is in me. Divinity is in me. No, I got to step a little closer. I got to get closer. I got to claim it. I got to claim that I live and I breathe and I move and I think in this divinity. I'm rooted in it. I have to step closer. I got to go further with it. I've got to identify myself as one and the same with the material I'm made from. Oh, and the reading out of Living the Science of Mind this month is excellent. It illustrates it. You can always find what we're reading if you go to our website under the Services tab. It tells you which page we're on. And this week's page is titled Your Personal Self, and it's a collection of essays all about who you are, all about your nature. And it's got these subsections in. I wanted to show them to you because they're so excellent. The life that is within you, the mind that is within you. And notice they're all uppercase to help us remember it's referring to the one. The law that is within you, the power that is within you, the friend that is within you, the healing presence that is within you, the peace that is within you. And each chapter makes the conclusion, I am that life. I am that mind. I am that peace. I identify myself as the one and the same with its nature. Oh, it's big. And here's how I like to read this exquisite chapter. I turn it into a personal meditation. So I look through it and I find sentences that I resonate with, and then I make them personal. I rewrite them because they're written as you are this, you are that, and I turn it into I am this and I am that, as if it were written specially for me and about me. So I read it slowly, pulling out sentences, and I'll say things to myself like, there is only one life, and that life is God, and that life is perfect, and that life is my life right now. The life within me is divine, and whatever is true of that God life is true of my nature too. And that life within me didn't begin, and it cannot end, and that life within me is eternal. And there's only one mind, and I'm using it right now. It is within me in its omnipresent state, so it is connected to everything. And when I sync with that truth at the center of my being, I am using the only mind that there is to use. The mind I'm thinking this with right now is the same mind that Jesus and Buddha and Krishna and you are using to think. Oh, and then the section, the friend within. Beautiful. I do the same thing with it. I personalize it. And I say, I have a friend within me who is closer than my shadow. And this friend anticipates my every desire and knows my every need and governs my every act. And this friend is the God within my own soul, the animating presence and power of my being. And it is projecting my personality, which is a unique expression of its own life. This friend with me is the infallible presence of God. It is not limited by previous experiences which I may have had, and not by present conditions either, nor by passing situations. And it has not inherited any tendencies of lack or limitation. It within me is forever radiant and happy, and this friend within me is different from all other persons, and yet united with all. And there's some part of me that reaches into the nature of others, irresistibly drawing me to them and them to me in one ecstatic unity, binding us all together. And right now, I sense my oneness with all people and all events through the presence of this friend within. And this friend within me lives in a state of grace. Ernest Holmes uses the word poise. Lives in a state of poise above all of the challenges of the world. This friend within me is continuously nudging me and urging me on towards happiness and wellness and a thriving life. This friend within me is a bright presence. It is my guide. It is my understanding. And there can be no greater unity than exists between me and this inner friend. It is at the very center of my being, directing my thought, causing me to get up and rise and move through every difficulty. In me, this presence keeps silent watch and lifts my consciousness to the realization that I am forever one with the divine. And I keep going, and I keep going, because I got to keep going, because I've got to stay with it, because I have to displace everything else that's in there. Oh, and there's a lot in there. Do you have a lot in there? A lot. I was remembering the movie Contact, about 1997. Maybe you saw it. It's about looking for, or rather listening for, extraterrestrial communication, and then finally discovering a signal from outer space. And it's based on the novel by the same title by Carl Sagan, who, by the way, had an amazing way of explaining the mystery of science and the stars in a way that non-scientific people could really be inspired by, to understand and accept the awesomeness of this creation. And even though he was a self-avowed atheist, he made me feel the presence of God in a most beautiful way. Anyway, I'm thinking of the opening sequence of the movie. If you saw it, maybe you're remembering that we start looking at Earth, and then we move back and we move back. And as we step back from Earth, we can hear the radio broadcasts coming up from the various countries. And the further back we go away from the Earth, the further back in time the radio broadcasts come. And they're all in a jumble. And I'm not certain if this is scientifically correct, but it makes an excellent point. The idea is those radio broadcasts through history, that's a way of telling who we are to an observer. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, am I that? Because it's overwhelming. There's so much in the airwaves. I mean, I can see how it could be really challenging for a person to figure out the answer to the question, well, who am I? Am I that? No wonder some people struggle with the question. Perhaps all they've had to go on this far is the broadcast. All the noise that rises up from our culture and from our own fears and from our families and from our histories and from our aspirations, from advertising, from peer pressure, from religion, from government, from schooling, from friends, from our dreams. Oh, it's a lot. And am I that? I recently changed email addresses. What a job. And I thought before I left the old email address behind, I should take a peek in the spam mail folder to read some of the headings of the messages that bombard our world. Make yourself more attractive to others. Control your weight and appetite with this superfood. Priceless, one-in-a-lifetime investment opportunity, guaranteed not to fail. Xanax online ordering, no prescription required. Stop the painful cravings with this super supplement. You too can have a larger kitchen. I see you get the same emails. that, I sat there and I felt a kind of heavy sadness about it. There's so much going on there. It can be really challenging to know, well, who am I in all of that? I mean, it's possible that a person might start believing that that is all there is, that defines life. But this month we're asking, what's underneath it all? What am I rooted in? Because I can see how a person might even base their choices and their strategies for surviving and all of that broadcasted stuff. But we've got to ask, what's underneath it? What am I rooted in? Who am I? I'm remembering also when I first encountered the Course in Miracles. I discovered in it a guidebook to help me find my way home to my true self. I started with the workbook. That's where I started. And it's a series of lessons. And do you know, I didn't really get past the first 6 lessons because of the profound impact it had on me, because it asked me to examine how am I viewing the world? How am I determining what is real and what is not real? It helped me to look into the roar of the broadcast and the meaning and figure out, what am I basing my life on? Now, the first 6 lessons can be summarized by these statements. Nothing I see means anything. I have given everything I see all the meaning that it has for me. I do not understand anything I see. These thoughts do not mean anything. I am never upset for the reason I think. I am upset because I see something that isn't there. Oh, good Lord. Oh, that was eye-opening for me, because I was amazed to discover how much of everything I was making up. And I think it was because I was using the roadmap broadcast to me from my culture, the kind of roadmap, the faulty roadmap that says, you should be upset when this happens. It's justified. And you should want to be a this when you grow up. And you should believe this, and you'll know you're successful when this. And so on and so on and so on. And I had to learn to ask, what's underneath all of that? And what am I rooted in? Is that me? I had to get still enough to come back from all of that to my personal self. I had to get still enough so that I could make the space to drop compulsions and urges and reactions and defenses. I had to get still enough to sense unity. I had to get still enough to realize that when I did create the space to drop everything, the unity that I was sensing had already been there. And I had to get still enough to discover that when I did drop everything, all that remained was this personal self rooted in the divine. I had to work it, though. I had to work these statements. And the way I worked it is I would just wait for my mind to start making up something, especially stressful stuff, and then just apply the thoughts, He parked in 2 parking spaces at the grocery store, and I'm annoyed by that. Nothing I see means anything. She is trying to annoy me. She knows I don't like that. I have given everything I see the meaning that it has for me. You know why he parked in those 2 spaces? Because he doesn't care about other people. It's a personality defect. I do not understand anything that I see. I'm getting all worked up about what she did because I should. That's appropriate. These thoughts do not mean anything. They don't respect me as a person. I'm never upset for the reason I think I'm upset. That was meant on purpose. It had spite in it. I'm upset because I see things that are not there. Oh, it takes time for a person to practice seeing thoughts for what they are. And it is my belief that as a person becomes more practiced at doing it, that it's easier and easier to find our way home to our personal self. And that stillness increases when we do that. In fact, as we do find our way home, we find, well, no, the stillness isn't increasing. It was always there in its top volume of silence. And then I think when we practice, we begin to discover the great joy there is in coming home. Then when I come home to peace, to the personal self, then I'm ready to engage the world, to do what is mine to do, speak to my family, create a resume, engage in the world with my roots in place. So I carry on with this beautiful chapter, one sentence at a time, turning it into a personal statement of affirmation to dwell upon. The peace that is within me is not something separate from God. It is something that expands from within me. Always this peace has been in me. Always. Always this peace has been nestled at the center of my being, ready to reveal itself harmoniously. Peace stands at the center of my consciousness and awaits my acceptance of it. It stands inside me, waiting to be expressed in what I do and what I say and what I think. The kingdom of heaven is within me. The kingdom of God is within me. So peace is the kingdom of God. It is within me, and peace is within me. The peace that is at the heart of the universe is within me. The peace that said to the waves, "Be still," is in me. The peace of God is in me, and I turn to it. And I discover it has always been there. It is always available. It is at the center of my being. It has never been disturbed, and it has never been afraid, and it has never desired to do anyone any harm. Peace is who I am. And the peace that is within me is not a result of anything that any human has ever done. It is not the outcome of human struggle. It was and is not the result of any human accomplishment. It always existed. This peace was not given by the world and cannot be taken away by the world. It waits for my recognition of it. And so, how then shall I use this great treasure that is at the center of my being today? I invite you to breathe in and to exhale into a moment of silent contemplation.